All right. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have our esteemed panelists here. And a very exciting topic, I must say, employee value proposition, and especially when we're talking about the hybrid world of work, it seems to have changed a lot, I must say. So how do you create that ideal value proposition for them? What is it that works, what doesn't? I'm sure all our audience members here are grappling with these kind of questions. So let me begin our conversation right away, and a question that I'd like all my speakers to address. So to thrive and lead in this new world of work, organizations need to transform, digitize, and also elevate workforce experience. According to you, what are the core tenets of a prudent EVP today, especially as we are talking of a hybrid setup? So Khim, can I start with you first there?
Okay, right. Morning, everybody. And before we proceed, how many of you in your organizations already have EVP, Employees Value Proposition, and it's on your website, communicated publicly? Okay, that's great. Now, so I think before we continue, I think what very importantly is for us to define what EVP is, Employee Value Proposition, right? So if you were to read up, they will talk about a set of benefits and so on. But how I would define employee value proposition would be a set of unique motivation and inspiration drivers, right? They will make employees want to strive, stay, and say great things about themselves, meaning they have pride, all right, or about their colleagues, all right, because there is teamwork or they are very engaged. And thirdly, about the organization, all right? That means there's attachment to the organization. You want to poach them, it's very difficult for them to, to want to move on, right? And this would be the basis of the employer branding, okay? So that's what EVP is, right? If you will Google Shell EVP, they will tell you these are the names of people in the management. We're not talking about that kind of EVP, no. All right? So now, without telling you exactly what it is, because different organization is different, right? You have got your different EVPs, right? Because like Apple is more on innovation. Amazon is about service, right? Alliance Bank is about, driving growth in the next couple of years and, in terms of customer excellence, for example. And there are some principles, I always give guidance in terms of principle, right? Now, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I wrote about employee sustainability, and I think this is important for EVP. And if you read Daniel Pink or Desi Ryan, right, they talk about three things, but I add on the fourth thing, right, which I call employee sustainability when it comes to EVP. Number one is to give people the purpose, okay? So purpose is, why am I here for? Right? What am I to do today and tomorrow? And the outcome that you want is that you want the employee to say, I live my purpose. Okay? So that's purpose. The other one is autonomy. Autonomy would be, how am I to navigate here in this organization? How am I going to navigate from one role to another as I go through different passages or different role? How am I empowered? And you want them to walk away saying, I'm independent. Okay? Today, I can be inspired because my boss tells me about this growth agenda, but I may not be motivated because I'm not empowered. There are just too many red tapes. You see the difference, right? So you got to be inspired and motivated, right? Inspired, so you have the purpose, and then when you get the autonomy, you feel empowered, right? And you feel motivated. The third one is mastery, okay? So mastery is also important because whether am I competent in doing my job? All right, am I able to be agile, adaptive to my new roles, for example? So what you want the people to feel is, I'm empowered, I'm competent. The third one that I added on is resilience, which I learned from one of the programs that I went through. It is actually to outline, like what Oli said, right? What's my boundaries, okay? Meaning to say, in order for me to fulfill, or this employee value proposition is, I'm not going to sell my soul and body to the company, correct? I won't. So where is my boundary, right? In terms of professional and personal aspects of it. And you want the people to walk away saying, I'm empowered, I'm agile, I'm adaptive, and I dare to speak up. Okay, and I think all in all, in these four components, then you can actually build the employee value proposition that is sustainable for the employees. Okay.
Very interesting points, Kim. I must say, I totally agree with you. I think especially purpose, autonomy, resilience, these are such important aspects today. And this is what employees are looking for. And if you're building an EVP around that, that's what will make sense. Nur Amani, what are your views on this? What should be the core tenets of an EVP?
Thanks, Yasmin. Good afternoon, everyone. So I come from Telekom Malaysia. We're 19,000 strong. But essentially, maybe we'll just start off a little bit from an EVP perspective. I've been in other organizations as well. And even in TM, it's gone through multiple stages of maturity, right? So I think what's important for EVP that it needs to not be static. So it needs to evolve based on a couple of things. That means employees' preference and their career career aspiration. So that changes over time as well. Secondly is where the company is at that current juncture, maturity level. Kim mentioned if you're going into growth areas for the next couple of years. So these are some of the things your EVP needs to also recognize and evolve accordingly. And some of the principles that I would stand by, all of the one that Kim mentioned, those are great ones, important. Some maybe I'll mention three more, which I think are fundamentals and not anything new either. The flexible work these days. So Khim Tan was talking about the wave and huge wave, right? So providing that flexibility of work, one. Two is, I think most organizations say, if I get you guys to show of hands, who does engagement surveys? Probably all of you do. But I think the bit about that where you need to go deeper is within that result that you get, that's high level. You need to go deeper, and I know you will probably also do focus groups. So very targeted, and Khim Tan used this word, this phrase as well, hyper-personalization. So even EVP needs to be very targeted, very personalized, bespoke. So that's two. And then compensation, so I'm actually remuneration and performance. So what Khim Tan said about compensation rang true, very true. So compensation is a very strong tool. You can use it wrongly and it goes completely wrong. If you use it right, that's a very strong EVP. So these are the three ones. The final one is probably around how you have to bring your employees into the larger ecosystem, because all employees are human. So they come to work, but they leave behind a whole ecosystem of family. So now the support is not just within when they're at the office, but also what kind of help they need beyond that to help them become more effective at work. So I think a lot of multi-generation now appreciate when we recognize beyond just what you need at the workplace, but what do you need as a human being, as a father, as a mother, as a daughter. So these are some of the things I think creates that strong pull to stay and be loyal to the organization, Yasmin.
Very interesting points, and I do agree that it is an ever-evolving aspect, EVP, as you look at it, because the world of work is changing so constantly. You can't stick to one EVP and then believe that your people will stick around based on that. And flexibility, compensation. We are talking about a war for talent. The whole great resignation, great retention period that we went through. I think very important points. Thanks, Girish. You've worked with multiple organizations. What is your viewpoint? What core tenets have you seen come out?
Yeah, so we have the luxury of working with hundreds and thousands of organizations in actually crafting their employee experience. And a couple of things that we've seen, which is common across these progressive organizations which are able to retain top talent, is that one, they have a ecosystem of support, an ecosystem of recognition, and an ecosystem of value or purpose, like Kim said, right? So, and let me go a little deeper in that. So when I say support, obviously, what Noor said, compensation is the base of it, right? You can't have an EVP without a solid total reward strategy. And it's not just the cash component, but it's also, the perks, the bonuses that you provide. And especially in the hybrid culture now, the support system is also about, the work-life balance, the work from home options, how many leaves do you give, paid offs and all of that. So that's one. And then the second biggest thing I've seen is the recognition. Any company that have a recognition program that understand that employees have, growth prospects, give them training, give them learning opportunities, tend to do very well. And third is obviously the values or purpose. Once the employees are aligned to a company's values and purpose, they like the organization, they stick around, they perform well. And not just purpose, but fair treatment, fair compensation are some of the tenets that I've seen across organizations, and that's the common theme.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's also about the whole employee life cycle. How are you managing your EVP, starting from attracting talent to retaining them, upskilling them, rewarding them, and finally even taking care of the exits. Right, that's also creates a huge impact on the kind of EVP you're creating. So great points, Girish. Thank you so much. Moving on to my next question, and now we have seen that how we found new allies in tech and innovation, and over the past 3 years especially, life and work have become completely unimaginable for us without them. Cultural innovation at a workplace is now seen with a new lens. So, Nur Amani, I'll come to you with this question specifically. What, according to you, would be the top parameters leaders should keep in mind while formulating the right equation of culture and innovation?
Thank you, Yasmin. So culture and innovation. Telekom Malaysia aspires to be human-centered tech co. But that's what the top level understands. We have 19,000 employees, as I mentioned, half of which are non-executive. So these are, in the group network technology alone, are 7,000. These are non-executive, those that go over to your house when I hope all of your households have Unify instead of the other providers. So I'm assuming you're all Unify users, great broadband. So when we go and fix that in your home, so these are different levels of employees. We have executives at home. The pandemic just went, well, I joined a year ago, but what I hear is we really had to revamp the way we work because most of non-executives don't have computers. They don't have their own laptops. Even mobile phones, a certain extent, aren't as smart as the ones that most of us have. So it's really adapting our culture with that innovation, the readiness level, where they're at from the mindset perspective. So even now, as we slowly move back into the office, Telecom is a very touch. That means they love gatherings like this. They love having coffees, having teas, face to face. MS Teams depresses them. They go, I just see you on the screen. Like I can't, touch you, have laugh, share coffee, have a bit of your food. So we try and balance that between, and we have folks all across the country. So we try to balance between the culture that has been ongoing, the culture we're trying to create moving forward as a human tech co, and then infuse that innovation with MS Teams. We're also trying to now have those apps. I think Girish probably has this as well, those apps where a total well-being app on the phone and on the laptop. But how do we reach out to those that aren't so savvy? So it has to be sort of a balance. Even the way we work, which is hybrid, even the way we reach out to them is also a hybrid. And again, hyper customization to the different pockets of employees.
Yeah, that's interesting. Again, as you said, the hybrid, people still, I think the whole fact behind getting people back to work was the missing factor of social interaction, and I think that's coming back. And now technology is enabling both the physical interaction, social interaction, and also collaboration for hybrid people who cannot meet each other on a daily. So I think that's the kind of culture we need to build. That's what hybrid and innovation is going to be all about. So thanks so much, Nur Amani, for sharing that. Khim, I'd like to come to you again. And we saw a few sessions in the beginning today also, and I think Nur Amani also touched upon the whole era of hyper-personalization, digitalization, employees working from anywhere. Leaders need to build a flexible EVP. That's something we talked about too. This should strike an equilibrium between evolving talent expectations and also business requirements. So what kind of an EVP framework do you think is needed to help companies attract and retain top talent? And what are employees expecting from their job roles today?
Okay, so that's quite a mouthful, isn't it? You give me the toughest question. Okay, now, so few components there, right? About future of work, right? So if you read about future of work, it talks about workplace, workforce, and the work itself, okay? So so good that you asked me the first question because I want to marry these two. So EVP is about marrying and integrating the elements of future of work, what's expected of the organization, okay, aligned to the mission and the value, and what hopefully I write a book about employee sustainability, right? The things, the 4 elements that I talk about, right? So how do you marry this workplace, workforce, work itself, and if you can imagine the matrix, I don't have canggih slides like FT lah, Fong Tuan. And then here you can see the column is about purpose, mastery, autonomy, and resilience. Okay, so if you imagine this matrix, so I think one way to frame up the EVP is to have to, if you cover this matrix, this element. Now, different organization may be different. Different times that you go through, right? Your organization might be also different, okay? Some organizations are into cost cutting. So maybe you cannot be so glamorous, lah. All right. And then if you're more on the growth journey, then, you know, you have got big pockets, right? Then you can invest more in certain elements of those, right? So let me just give you an example, right? How you marry some of these metrics. Huh? So let's say workforce. So workforce, what's important is culture, right? Then from employee, what would be the link? Purpose, giving the sense of purpose, right? So there is a survey by PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. They did a survey globally for 3,000 over leaders and also employees. They found that 72% of these respondents find that culture is really very important, okay, for their own sense of purpose, of belonging, plus to drive transformation or changes. Even McKinsey, they did a survey and they found that their studies showed that 70% of transformation fail due to people or culture challenges. So in the EVP, the culture and the sense of purpose need to marry. That one is very, very important, right? Organization is the whole bread and butter of everything. So it's very important. Now, if you look and you can Google, like, okay, if you were to see, I think some of us here, either you're maybe Shell, you know, Fong Tuan, Maybanker, all right, where I came from, Fong Tuan and I were colleagues in British American Tobacco. If anyone of these people walk into the room, you will notice there's the pride skate. Yeah, they got pride, right? Why? Because they are well taken care of, they're driven, all right, you know, and the company does very well, okay? So how do you marry these two? Is to ensure that the culture is strong and also give the people a sense of purpose. Like Axiata, you know, they talk about sustainability. Oli comes in and will call out on plastics, right? You see a lot of plastics here, all right? So she'll call out. So you got to walk the talk, okay? So you align that. Okay, so that's on culture and also sense of purpose, right? Now the other one is, I think that, so we talk about workplace, right? So now I talk about workforce, okay? So I give you an example of how I marry, or we should marry the workforce and autonomy, okay? Autonomy from employee perspective, company-wise is the workforce. So companies tend to forget about organizational design. You know, when we do people survey, you see all these symptoms, right? People not happy, frustrated and all that. But do you know that the cause of it is probably the way how we design our work, the way how we design the structure, right? Too many levels, too wide a span of control or layering, and the review, my God, don't know how many rounds, right? Have to go to so many committee approval and all that. And people get frustrated, yeah, because of that. And people don't feel autonomous in that sense. So that's something that you need to look at as well. Then let's say, for example, we talk about, again, workforce. Workforce, capability and mastery, they work hand in hand. So as we have to ask ourselves, are we preparing our people to be future ready? If you read up, there are 6 or 5 areas to prepare our workforce to be future ready. Human centricity or customer centricity, data. I think you hear a lot like Oli and all that, talk about data, digitalization and all that stuff, right? And then, you know, cybersecurity, governance and all that. Are we preparing our staff for this? Okay, to be future ready. And that's where employee side perspective will feel that, hey, I've got the mastery, I've been skilled, I've been prepared for the future. I don't have to worry about losing job because the job will be there, as what FT said. But the job will change. So is the organization, or am I given the autonomy or mastery to be able to be competent for this role and the future role and be ready? Don't worry. The bank or the company will not fire me because they're always there to help me and support me, all right, in order to upskill or reskill for the matter, okay? Last one I just give you, I'm looking at the time, is the work, right? So maybe on a more personal sense is my work interesting? Is my work preparing me for the next stage of my life, or, you know, the next stage of the growth of the organization? Will I be equally well, or will I be even more stressed up? Okay, what support system do I get? How do I integrate my work life? You know, like what you said about, you know, I'm a mom, I'm daughter, and so on, right? How do I do that? Okay, pandemic is crazy, right? Pandemic blurs everything, okay? Time to wake up and draw that line and speak up, all right? And say, no, I'm not gonna work on the weekends, you know, I'm gonna stop and shut down at 8, things like that, right? What's the meaning for people? Last but not least, so that's the framework. But I think what's more important is execution. So when you execute, don't just do the framework and cascade out, okay, and put on your website. But what's important is getting input for employees, right? Like my team, we are working on focus group discussion, right, where we involve senior leaders, heads of department, line manager, and so on. And very important, get input, validate, and then change management, comms, walk the talk, right? And then deliver. Now, this takes about 2-3 years for it to really, you know, see through, okay? That would be
very, very well said, I must say, Khim. I think you really created a very great framework that people would love to take it from here and maybe, you know, discuss it more deeply with you later. But I do agree that marrying the 4 tenets that you mentioned to this workplace and workplace is a very interesting way of looking at it. And yes, how do you implement and execute is where, are you just doing it for the books? Or are you really, you know, making it work for you? That really matters. Thank you so much. Girish, coming to you now. So we have a plethora of tech options today that companies can leverage to get a pulse of employee behavior and, you know, get more, understand what they're liking, what is working for them. And this can further assess to tailor experiences, right? In your experience, what could be some of the most ideal ways for companies to identify gaps in employee offerings and elevate employee experience and well-being segment?
Sure. So, okay. So, you know, these days you have these pulse polls, mood check-in, surveys, and like you mentioned, you know, the focus group, which give you a good enough understanding on what's working, what's not working, where you can ask employees directly. But what I have seen in many organizations is that you look at the data that's available to you. Now, any good engagement platform or anything that you're using will give you some analytics and will have a dashboard, right? It should show what is the utilization rate for all the activities that you're doing. If you're giving out vouchers or you know, points to your employees, are they even redeeming it or not, right? So you know, all these tools are available and their dashboards and analytics are available, and one should take a deep look into what's happening, not happening. And not just, you know, new age. If you look at your old traditional methods of, you know, communicating with your employees, even that can give you some data. So, you know, all of us send emails to our employees. There is a way to figure out how many of them actually opened it, right? There is a joke in many organizations that when something comes from HR, it goes into a folder. But you know, you can actually check open rate, you can actually check click rate, you can actually check how many people took the action, right? And that will give you an idea on if my communication is working or not, or the topic that I'm talking about is interesting or not. That's part one, right? Then on the other side, you know, where I was telling you about the voucher and redemption and everything, you know, there are ways to figure out what sort of category are they using. I've seen organizations who will give out gift cards, and there are organizations who will give out gifts, like physical gifts, and people don't use them. They just leave them on their desk and never use them. But when you look at gift cards, you can easily figure out who needs what, and it's slightly flexible. So, you know, all of these are available to you, and I think every HR professional should utilize all these data points, which are already available. So you don't have to plug in and you don't have to do a deep analytics for this. Yeah.
Interesting insights, I must say, because as Khim also said, it's about implementation and execution. These are some good ways to look at it, and you can see tangible results and you can see the impact right there. So great points again, Girish. Yeah. So, all right. So we've already spoken about this, that, you know, it shouldn't be confined just to talks, just to presentation decks, but EVP has to be a very, very sustained effort. So what challenges do you see as leaders that they'll come across in this year or the coming year, and how do you think those can be overcome when it comes to creating an EVP? So, Nur Amani, I'd like to hear you first on that.
So yeah, it's very challenging as we went through this year. To what, Girish, we're trying to introduce what we call a well-being 360. program. So this looks at not just your, physical health, because our medical costs are just escalating. Telekom Malaysia, I mean, our benefits from those days, some of them were crazy. So we've got crazy high medical costs. So it's about Wellbeing 360, which we looked at everything overall, 360, and a lot of issues. And this app that we have, it starts off asking you about your mental health. And we find that mental health is a very big issue in the organization. I'll just share a bit with your demographic. We have only 3.5% those under the age of 30. Our average age group is 43. So you can understand, and most of them are very loyal employees, so they've been with the organization 20 years, 25 years. So that demographics alone makes us need to think about, okay, how do we then craft an EVP that makes, and we don't have attrition. We don't have, people don't leave Telekom Malaysia very much. I left, came back.
That's a good problem
so yeah,
to
they
have.
leave, they come back. So I left and then I come back. So, but we need to refresh the organization. We've got growth areas we want to go into for the next 5 years, cloud and, build more submarine cables. So we need to refresh the organization. It's an aging population. So our challenge is a little bit different, targeted, this goes, we want to keep, we want to increase, we want to attract graduates to come, young folks. We also want to start to not put them into greener pastures, but, sort of think, okay, what's your next career aspirations? Where do you think, if TM isn't the place you're going to retire? And we do have that conversations. How do we help you transition into your next phase of life? Where, under this, just go lah already, right? But, okay, no telecom people here, right? But yeah, so essentially it's a real issue. You're not dealing with one side. It's not just about multi-generational. It's not just about dealing with millennials who I think one manager called me and said, get rid of this guy, this junior, because why? I called him at 5:30. He said, don't disturb me, 5:30, my private time. I said, whoa, this fresh grad. But Khim was saying, it's about setting that boundaries. But folks who's been in the organization 5 years, hello, 5:30, I call you, you answer, you do the work. So it's trying to create a culture that balances all of this. So yeah, those are our challenges.
Yeah, I totally agree with the kind of different generations working, everything, and the expectations, the demand for flexibility of all of that put together. It is not an easy task. What about you, Khim? What would you add to this? What challenges do you see?
I think I make it very simple, right? I think the challenge would be that if it'll be a mistake if it's a top-down approach, right? And it'll be a mistake if it's a blanket approach, like what Khim Tan said, right? I think I'll make it as simple as that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great. Girish, what about you?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge is actually framing the EVP and communicating it.
Yeah.
When Khim asked that question in the beginning, how many of you actually have an EVP program, and how many of you actually have it on the website for employees to see, it's less than 10-20% of this audience. So you can imagine that's the biggest challenge of first framing it and then communicating and then living by it, right? You have to walk the talk as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Putting it to use, if I can say it, So that's very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Final question to all our speakers. Now we are moving into 2023. Interesting year. We've seen 3 very different years in the past. We still don't know how different 2023 would be, but what kind of vision are you seeing for employee experience in EVP? And what are some of the new trends that you think, would help companies champion the future talent space in 2023 and beyond? So again, Khim, I'd like to hear you first now.
Always give me the tough one. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll take on the challenge. All right, now I always start with context, right? Why EX or employee experience is really important is if you look at Josh Bersin, our guru for HR, right? They say that if you have got an excellent or right EX, it will bring about these ROIs. One is from the business outcome is 2 times better than if you don't have better EX, right? When it comes to people outcome, all right, then it's 5 times more. So you can imagine. And then innovation outcome is about 3 to 4 times better than if you don't have a proper or the right EX, right, experience. Now, second is, so you understand the why of EX. Then 2 and 3, step 2 and 3 is about the what and the how. So I like to use Amazon. Maybe I hope Lazada and all that have this, okay, closer to home. Their value proposition is around customer experience. right? That's their company value proposition. So their employee value proposition, employee focuses around how to enable their delivery guys to deliver to the destination fastest possible and, able to clock in and then they go on to the next trip. Okay, so that's the employee value proposition. Now, what I've recently attended our bank's HR network, it was presented by Deloitte. So they say the future for 2023 onwards will be more of a skill-based organization. So all of us, we also entrenched in competency-based organization, right? Knowledge, skills, and all that. But because pandemic has accelerated our learning, we don't need CIO to tell us how or teach us how to learn. We just learn on the go, right? We learn how to Zoom. We learn so many things, right? So did I. Okay, and and people are hungry for knowledge, or skills, right? So that's the way forward. I think the likes of Standard Chartered and some organizations are already moving towards that skills base, all right? So for example, what's important is today, you can be in HR, finance, insights or planning or frontline, backroom. One skill that I'm also driving among my team is data analytics skills, for example. Because without data or analytics, you cannot make decision for a better, so that's one skill set example, right? So it doesn't matter what functional competency you have, but the skills is that, or customer service skills, or leadership skills, for example, they will keep you agile and so on. So for Alliance Bank, moving forward, we are driving, as I said, driving growth. So there are a few things that we're working on, like EVP. We have in place things like recognition culture. We do that. Like someone mentioned about employee recommending employee, right? So we have that. It's all published. People can see, all right? And it's linked to our key behaviors and values that we expect. And then my peer, either CEO or the management committee can actually put this, what we call recognition. Let's say Menko appreciates you for whatever achievements that they had. We have things like, for example, Fit at Alliance. When we say fit, it can be financial fitness, mental fitness, health, fitness, and so on. We collaborate with Sports Club on some of the activities. Nice. All right, and then Flex at Alliance. So we talk about, preparing people, because that's today, right? You have to work in hybrid. So things like, for example, flexible working arrangement and so on. And I came up with this crazy idea of Flex Benefit, which attracted a lot of attention. What I did was, we don't have big budget like Maybank, right? Maybank banyak duit. Okay, sorry. It means a lot of money. Okay. So I just write on whatever I have within my dental optical limit. And I give people the flexibility, we give people the flexibility to claim within that limit, all right, for rejuvenation, for their well-being, like they can claim CHRO, things that they couldn't claim before, ergonomics, sports, gym, yoga, for well-being, and also personal development. Like, for example, you can buy books, you can go for cooking, classes, or coding. Coding is one skill, right? So I think that's another skill that's moving forward in the future. So I think these are things that we're looking at, moving forward.
Very interesting. Thanks. What about you, Nur Amani?
Did the bell just save me or no?
No, you.
Rats. I was looking at the time, it was winding down, like, okay. Well, a lot of the things that Khim mentioned, we also aspire to do. So I think I mentioned at the start, we're aspiring to be human-centered tech co, and that's big words.
Yes.
So it's really about future-proofing the organization. Also shared with you the demographic. So it's really about upskilling, reskilling. And when Telekom Malaysia goes and says, we're going to change the different jobs, then it becomes a national issue because we're a national, network provider and things like that. And we have a union as well, Yunus. I don't know, Yasmin, in Malaysia, if you're unionized. So we're going into automation, creating for the network, lesser human touch. So faster to client, like faster to customer. But the impact to that means we reduce workforce. So communication is key. Yeah? So if we do that, we're going into innovation. What kind of EVP we're going to build? We need to communicate carefully. If we say we're going to automate, how many jobs are you going to cut? Yeah? Am I not going to have a job tomorrow? So it's really about communicating that next year we're about reskilling, upskilling. Yes, those jobs, I think Khim Tan was also showing the type of workforce and Khim sharing as well. those jobs may no longer exist, but hey guys, we are committed to upskill you, to reskill you. And yeah, we've got 19,000 jobs. We will find a job for you. So as we move along this journey to become a human-centered TechCo, we must bring everyone along with it. We're not saying, oh, you're obsolete because you're 56 and we can't teach you anything anymore. No, it's really about you're all on this journey together. We're going in this EVP and all the different messages that we will put out there. How do we get graduates? How do we get this group of people? How do we get this? It's all very targeted and very deliberate in how we go out there and message. The type of branding is also very strong. So we work very strongly with the branding team together with the EVP to go out to the market to get the right people.
Nice.
Because, you know, the next 5 years is going to be super challenging.
Great.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Nur.
Yasmin.
Yeah, thank you. Girish, over to you.
Yeah, so I feel, you know, what the last 2-3 years have taught us that people are not coming to job for money, right?
Yeah.
The whole great resignation wave, the quiet quitting has told people that, hey, if they come to work if they love the work, right? So I feel the biggest challenge in the coming years is going to be how you marry your purpose into your EVP.
Yeah.
Why should I come to work? Because there are dozens of organizations who are ready to pay me better or, you know, have a better compensation package, maybe a better work life, give hybrid options and all of that. But why do I choose this particular company?
Yeah.
And that has to be communicated. That has to come. And companies do a fantastic job of telling what they do, how they do, but now they have to start telling why we do what we do.
Yes,
right?
nice.
So I think that's going to be the theme for 2023 and beyond.
Great. I think that's a great point there, that what is it as an employer that would make you, the employee, the candidate, choose you over others? I think that's what employee value proposition. What is unique about you? Are you really walking the talk? Are you really creating an experience which aligns to the aspirations and goals of the individual who's working for you or who's going to work for you? I think aligning business with the aspirations of your people, having tech at the center of it. I think that's that's what an ideal EVP will look like even in the future. So on that note, I'd really like to thank our speakers, Khim, Nur Amani, and Girish. It was a wonderful conversation, and thank you everyone for joining us for this session. Let's have a huge round of applause for our speakers.
Thank you.